Eventually in October 2014, I had an overdose that almost killed me. I had my friend Parker, he found me like foaming at the mouth in my room. And, I woke up about 2.5 weeks later or so. And everyone was like, dude, you had an overdose and like nearly died. And that's what got me out of it. And I was happy that it happened. I wasn't really upset. I was disappointed in myself, of course, but I was happy that I finally had a way out.
This is the Maverick Show, where you'll meet today's most interesting real estate investors, entrepreneurs, and world travelers, and learn the strategies and tactics they use to succeed. And now, here's your host, Matt Bowles.
Hey everybody, it's Matt Bowles. Welcome to the Maverick Show. My guest today is Francis Nayan. He is a location-independent freelance copywriter and email marketing strategist. He works with brands around the world to help them grow their email lists and increase sales through high-level list segmentation and automated email campaigns with emotionally driven, story-based copy. By improving their email marketing alone, he is able to help his average client boost their total company revenue by 30%. Born in the Philippines, Francis grew up primarily in the United States, and after a personal battle with drug addiction, it was a heroin overdose that inspired him to get clean, healthy, and build the life of his dreams. In the past 5 years since getting clean, he has been able to become fully location independent, build a 6-figure freelance copywriting business, and he has traveled to over 30 countries. Francis, welcome to the show.
Wow. Thank you so much for that, Matt. Happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to giving your audience a heck of a show.
My man, I am so excited to have you here, brother. You and I have been in touch for a while now, and I'm super excited to get you on the show. Let's just start off and talk about where we are actually recording this from today. We're not in person. I am actually based in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Western North Carolina. I am in Asheville recording this today, and actually not very far from the Tennessee border. But where are you today?
Man, I wish I was near the Tennessee border. I'm actually in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. Yeah, came here about 2 months ago just to kind of hang out and get some work done, really.
I love it, brother. Well, I kind of wish I was in Mexico as well. So that's an awesome place to be, my man. But I know actually that Tennessee is a big part of your origin story and your roots. And I would love to just hear, from you, just take us back to the beginning. And can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, where you grew up primarily? And as you were growing up, how did your initial interest in travel start to develop when you think back?
To go like way back, I was born in Manila in the Philippines to, Filipino parents. And, we were immigrants coming to Memphis, of all places, only when I was about a year and a half, 2 years old. And yeah, we were kind of your typical immigrant family, kind of had very humble beginnings, kind of sharing an apartment complex with other families. And yeah, just being with my parents on their journey, trying to create this American dream for us, which for them, eventually they kind of fulfilled. They were able to create their own businesses, send their kids to really good schools. And, looking back at it now, I'm really like super proud of them, and I hope I'm making them proud because, yeah, it's been, one heck of a journey just coming from Manila to Memphis to traveling all over the world and building my own business and things like that. So yeah, it's just been such a wild ride.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. It's really interesting. So your parents were entrepreneurs. Can you talk a little bit about that and maybe about their journey and what you saw as a kid and how that may have inspired or influenced you?
Yeah. Well, they came here not as entrepreneurs. When they first came to the States, my dad actually came in the late 80s because he got a job offer as a physical therapist just through various cities around the States. I think he had choices from Philadelphia to Chicago to Orlando, Florida, I think some parts in Texas as well. And he chose Memphis because my grandfather loves Elvis Presley, and we all know Elvis is from Memphis. So I think that was that's what I was always told was the reason why we came. Seems to be kind of a weird reason to come. I was like, all right, well, we love Elvis, so I guess we're going to change our whole family's lives because Elvis is from Memphis. But I mean, yeah, watching them just kind of work their asses off, trying to provide for us and trying to make it into, this kind of crazy world of, the United States was something that in which, when I was a kid, I couldn't really see. But looking back at it now and kind of getting older and hearing their story, it's really impacted me because, I definitely did see my dad kind of, go through the morning grind of waking up early and then going to, to see his patients. And, he would go to their own homes because usually his patients were people who, didn't have the mobility to make it to a clinic or something. So, I would actually even go with him to his patients as a kid. I would have like a church league basketball game or something, being like 6, 7 years old. And he would just say, hey, I'll take you to your game and you can come with me to my patient's place. And so I would just say yes, and I just thought it was like a day out with dad or something. So I would go out with him. And I'm really grateful I did that because it kind of gave me a very diverse perspective, kind of meeting people from different ages to different races, being all over the city of Memphis. And so, yeah, it was just a really great experience. But, it's as I got older, my mom started building her own businesses as well. So she runs her own, Suboxone clinic back in Memphis now. But, back then she didn't have her own business. She was the manager of my dad's clinic. Once my dad started making his own clinic and, building that business, she became kind of the manager and kind of the showrunner there. And so around the time I was in my late teens, I noticed my mom was, she was making some moves here and there. She tried to open a restaurant and then she built this kind of business with a friend. And so this kind of mentality of like, work your butt off and, do things on your own and provide for the people you love, that was always instilled in me from the beginning.
That's awesome, man. And can you talk a little bit about your Filipino identity growing up as a kid in Memphis? And then also now that you're a world traveler and you've been back to the Philippines as an adult, can you talk about the importance of your Filipino identity and how that may have evolved over the years?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question because that's something in which I've really had to think about a whole lot, within the past years, being, turning almost 30 and kind of like realizing I'm around the age that my dad had me, kind of identity's been a big thing. But yeah, growing up in the South as a Filipino, it was really interesting just because when I would go to school or I would hang out with my friends, none of my friends were Filipino. The only Filipinos I hung out with were the other Filipino kids in the Filipino American community in Memphis. And we'd see them maybe once every 2 or 3 months at these Phil-Am parties that we'd have in Memphis, which somehow Memphis has like a pretty big Filipino American community, or at least as a 6-year-old, it seemed really big. So I grew up, eating Filipino food, going to these Filipino parties and kind of diving into that part of myself. But then outside of that, I didn't really touch base with it. And, my parents didn't speak Tagalog with me. The Tagalog I know is just because of my grandma, and I would watch like Filipino TV shows and stuff with her. But, my parents spoke English with me, and all my friends were American, and they were American of, different races. And some of them were the kids of immigrants as well. So being Filipino in the South, it definitely was a bit strange just because the South is it has its own culture, and especially the Deep South, being from Tennessee. And, I went to university in Mississippi. So it did feel weird at times just because there weren't, I guess, cultural diversity wasn't like the biggest thing in the South growing up in the early 2000s. So it was definitely a bit awkward at first. And then I went through that whole thing of like, getting made fun of for my race and, some small bits of racism here and there. And that's given me a different perspective also, just because I look back at it now and it's like, how could I have accepted that kind of racism or the things they said when obviously that's not right. And, I went through the phase of just being mad at them. How could they do that? But then kind of accepted the fact that it happened and, they didn't mean any real harm. Was it hurtful? Sometimes, but, I never made like the biggest deal out of it. But yeah, I mean, as I got older, it became not the biggest deal. It wasn't really a topic of conversation with friends. They kind of didn't even see me as like Filipino. yeah, just someone as part of their group. So it's definitely a very interesting experience, Matt. I mean, when I say I was thinking about it a whole lot recently, I really mean like recently, within the past few years, just because I went to the Philippines 2 summers ago. And, as an adult, I'm here like kind of touching base with my Filipino roots. And, I kind of have this identity as, I don't know, like, well, I guess questioning my identity of, am I a Southern American? Am I more like worldly, as kind of douchey as that sounds? Or, am I European just because I'm like lived in Europe for the past 5 years, and like even going back to the States and kind of hanging out with American friends feels like a little bit weird. So yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, man. I think that's very common for a lot of, folks in the diaspora, right? Especially first generation immigrant kids. And so, now that you have traveled the world though, and you've been back to the Philippines and all of that, where did you sort of land on that? Like, as you were processing over the last few years, how do you sort of conceptualize it all now? Like, what's your perspective on it now versus maybe what it was earlier?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still trying to understand, just because when I talk to friends back home and I kind of understand what kind of things they love talking about football, some politics here and there. And I'm like, I don't know nothing about American football other than the group chat we have where they just kind of bombard every day about fantasy league and things like that. And I don't really resonate with that. And I don't really resonate with what I see in the news, which of course that's just the news. That's a small percentage of what's really going on. Right now, it's more like I'm kind of accepting the fact that I am just a bit more worldly. And that's not even saying like I'm so worldly, I'm a citizen of the world, but it's more like I identify with many things, and I don't have to be one thing or the other. I'm not Francis the Southerner, or Francis the American, or Francis the guy who lives in Europe. It's just myself. And I kind of look at everything as kind of grateful and proud of every phase of my life and all the places I've been. I kind of have all of those things within me. So, and they make me. So I'm really grateful for that. But I don't think I have like one set identity. And but maybe that's a good thing.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I think it is a good thing. And you're Francis, the Memphis Grizzlies fan as well. Let's give some props for that.
Oh, the biggest. Yeah, just come on now. Like, we're probably going to win the championship this year. I know we're only like, I know we've lost like 3 games in a row, but probably going to win every other game this year.
That's awesome, man. So, all right. So let's go from there, right? From the next part of your journey, you grew up in Memphis and then you went to college in Mississippi. How was that experience, and how did, that part of your journey go? What were your professional aspirations, and how was that college experience for you?
I had about 0 professional aspirations, being a 17, 18-year-old kid. Like, just coming from Memphis, I went to that school because there was an opportunity to start the lacrosse team there. And it was just like, your very kind of like shitty Division III team. But I thought the idea of like, oh, I can actually make something, and I can actually be like, I don't know, a founder of something. And so I wanted to go to this school, not just because it was a good school. It was a really great school, but because I wanted to kind of make an impact in some way. But yeah, I mean, going to school in Mississippi, that was also just a very interesting time in my life, not just because of things that happened like later on about my sophomore and junior year, just being in the deep, deep South and having friends from, all across the South, from Arkansas to the boondocks of Mississippi to like those raging Cajuns from Louisiana. Yeah, just really all over the place. I loved it because really exposed to a lot of diversity, which, I didn't mention before, but it's just something I really loved, like growing up as a kid. I went to middle school and everybody was from different races and from all over the place. And going to Mississippi and, at this college, it was the same. And I really liked it. I think William Faulkner said, if you want to understand the world, first go to Mississippi or something like that. And I think there's a lot of truth to that because it's such a weird, crazy place that, is horrible with statistics and things like that. But there's a lot of character that stayed with me. And I feel really proud that I spent a good amount of years there, and it did make me into who I am today.
That's amazing, man. That's really, really awesome. Now, I know that you mentioned to me that during college, you also ended up struggling with drug addiction. Can you talk a little bit about that journey, both in terms of how you sort of fell into that and then how you eventually got out of that?
Yeah, man. I mean, as I said, before, I didn't really have any aspirations, other than to, start this team, which really didn't work out on my end. Ended up quitting just a couple months in, just because when you don't have a goal or a bigger long-term goal, then you kind of get yourself distracted and you start putting your focus on other things. So because I didn't like school and I didn't know what I was doing, and anything I did get myself into academically, I just didn't like. I was too bored or something. I just kind of ended up just getting wasted, and at first it was your kind of typical college kid thing of, I'm getting drunk on every day, or I'm smoking weed. And then on the weekends, somebody may have a pill here and there of like some Xanax or some Coke or something. And at first it was just really small kind of like weekend things. But then eventually it was like, why do it on Saturday? Let's just do it on Sunday to, beat the hangover. And then Sunday turned to Monday. And then it was like, why would I be hungover when I could just take these pills that make me feel good all the time? But then one pill became two became three became four became 10. Why take 10 when I can just do something stronger? And so I kind of like slowly, quote unquote, graduated to harder stuff to, the point of I was doing, ended up, I moved on to heroin. And that was just like a crazy time in my life, because I was functioning as a college kid, not really functioning. I was essentially like failing at all my classes. I could afford this. I had a on-campus job that, I pretty much bullshitted the way through. I was just, working at the gym, making sure people, swipe their ID cards and things like that, and picking up hours just so I can sit there high. And, I got into it because my friends were doing it too. And I think looking back now, it's almost like at the time I kind of got mad at everyone for introducing me to that stuff. But, I was part of it. I was part of the problem as well. And then eventually I wasn't just snorting it or swallowing it. I was crushing up pills and getting syringes at the local Walmart and, shooting up. And, shooting up became every other day to, once a day to multiple times a day. I still remember when, my friend, he looked at me and he was doing it for a while before me. And he said, Francis, if you do this, you have like an 85% chance of never getting out. You know that, right? And I said, yeah, I know. I don't care. I want it. And, that's just how it was. Then it just got really, really, really bad, Matt. It's like, I am now stealing things. I'm lying to people. I'm cheating in every single way I can just to make a buck. I'm flipping stuff at pawn shops, or I'm taking on like weird, like daily jobs or something, or getting paid under the table to do this and that, or I'm gathering money up so I can buy pills just so I can sell that and make profit and get something harder for myself. And that was kind of my life for better half of like 2.5 years or so, until eventually in October 2014, I had an overdose that almost killed me. I had my friend Parker, he found me like foaming at the mouth in my room. And I woke up about 2.5 weeks later or so, and everyone was like, dude, you had an overdose, and like nearly died. And that's what got me out of it. And I was happy that it happened. I wasn't really upset. I was disappointed in myself, of course, but I was happy that I finally had a way out, because prior to the overdose, about a month before, I tried to get clean. Ended up going through like a week, 2 weeks of withdrawals of everything you see in movies, to the cold sweats, to just feeling hot like all the time, insomnia of not sleeping for like 8 days and stuff. And like that sobriety lasted for like 3 days until I went back to Jackson, Mississippi, and just like ended up doing drugs like pretty much immediately. But when I had my overdose, I was happy because now everybody knew it was out in the open, and now I could get help, and everyone was going to hold me accountable. And so October 2014, that was when kind of my journey to now started.
Can you talk a little bit about that journey of getting clean? Because you mentioned in your story that most people that get that far into heroin addiction may never come out of it. They may have a lifelong struggle with that. So can you talk a little bit about what your path was to getting clean and getting healthy, and just being able to pivot from there and just design your dream lifestyle and get on the path that led you to where you are today?
Yeah, yeah. I think that one of the best things I had was the support system. I had a pretty bad time with the addiction. At its worst, I was shooting up 5, 6, 7 times a day. And half the time I wasn't even getting high. It was more like me just trying to not get withdrawals. So it got pretty bad. But because it was so bad, I was so grateful that I had a really good support system. So one of the things that really changed me was, I went back home to Memphis and it was fine. I was like sober, 2 months in, but I'm still like, just like miserable, and one of the best people in my life, still today, I'm so happy I know, and I love him to death. It's just my friend, is my best friend, Frankie, who, I knew him back in high school, and he just graduated college at the time too. Well, I didn't graduate, but he kept trying to connect with me. Of like, Fran, we're back in town, dude. Like, let's hang out. And for the first 2 months, I was like ducking him for, I don't know why. I just don't think I was right in the head or something. But eventually, we met up like one time, and then hung out for a night, and like that was it for like another month. But then after that, we started hanging out like every day. And he was big fitness guy, fitness like junkie, still is. He's a personal trainer, but back then, he was trying to become a fitness model and things like that. And I'm no fitness model, but he just kind of showed me how to be healthy again. And he, just being with him, it instilled in me really good habits to stay clean, to create goals for myself. Because, fitness guys are always about, the next goal, they're trying to gain weight or cut weight or try to reach, this PR or something. So just being with him was a big part of it. But then he, my support system grew because his brother came back to town as well, and his brother's friend came, and I just hung out with these guys like every day, Matt, like every night, going to Frankie's house and doing nothing but like, I don't know, like we were like watching like YouTube fitness videos and playing like Xbox, and just, I was away from the drugs and things like that, but it was just nice, just because I was able to be around people who had goals, who wanted to be healthy, and were looking forward to the future, not just trying to get like a hit how it was for so long. So yeah, I mean, that support system was so big. And I remember when I was talking to Frankie one night, and he said, his plan was to go to New York to try his hand at acting or modeling or something. And he said, Fran, what do you want to do? And I said, well, man, I always wanted to travel the world. That's always the thing that I wanted to do. And he said, you should do it. Like, how do you do that? Like, you know it more than me. Like, how do you do that? And I said, I actually had no idea at that time, but it was all about, I just knew some people were teaching English abroad. And I had some friends in college who they mentioned it once or twice, but then I looked into it, and then I had some money saved up from the job I was working then. It was like all the money I had. It was all like $1,000 or like $900 or something. And it was to get my certification to teach English abroad. And that became my goal. That was like, all right, I'm just going to stay healthy. I'm going to work out with Frankie, and I'm going to hang out with these guys. And that's going to be my thing. I made it a goal to like, whatever I'm going to do, I'm going to travel. I'm going to go somewhere. I want to go get away from Memphis. I'm not going to be in Jackson. I'm not going to do any of that. I'm just going to go someplace else. And that's what happened.
And how long was it from the time that you were recovering, you started your recovery in Memphis and getting healthy and all of that, until you left the United States to start traveling the world? And where did you go first?
Yeah, it was only about 9-10 months. So I had my overdose October 2014, and I boarded a plane to move to Barcelona, Spain in August 2015. So whatever that is, about 9-10 months, 9.5 months or so. And yeah, I remember I was going to the University in Memphis to pick up these practicum hours to get teaching experience and things like that. And I'm like attending these online meetings to like how to teach English online. And, it's great that I got the certification, but then I was just getting rejection after rejection trying to apply to places, because back then, you had to have this certification. Some places wanted you to have it for a couple of years. Some of the schools or programs wanted you to have a teaching degree or an English degree or something, which I didn't have. So it definitely took like a little bit of time. But I remember when I applied to like 100, 200 places, would only get a handful of responses. But then eventually a program did accept me. That was based in Spain, and they placed me in Barcelona, which was, yeah, I still love thinking about that just because I remember getting in the car with like my mom. I was like, I have to go to an interview. They'll only interview me in like Washington, D.C. or something. And she was like, all right, we'll drive there. So we drove like 12 hours together. Yeah, she drove, we stayed in like some like crummy hotel or something just so I can do this interview. And yeah, I mean, she was a big part of it, just being a really great support system. And just someone she works with addicts, and the fact that she kind of took care of me, and there was no judgment or even like anger towards me for doing what I did. That was big. Yeah. Going to Barcelona, that was my first stop, but it wasn't the city. I was actually in a little, I guess, town or village 45 minutes outside of Barcelona called Sant Quirze del Vallès. And I was teaching English at a local trilingual school over there. And so that's what set it off right there.
That's awesome, man. I love Barcelona as well. It is one of my favorite cities in the world.
Oh, it's amazing.
You and I were actually there at the same time because I lived in Barcelona for about 5 weeks in 2015. So we were actually there at the same time, might have even crossed paths on the street, who knows? But I would love to hear from you what your Barcelona experience was like. What do you love about Barcelona? I mean, especially maybe for people that haven't been there, what was that like for you?
Man, Barcelona was crazy for me, just like almost in every way possible. Just because when I first arrived, I wasn't in Barcelona. I was in this town, and I just went from being totally sober in Memphis, just being like a Southerner, hanging out, driving my car around Memphis to here I am, like this small town in the middle of Spain, or Catalonia. And I just remember thinking it was so crazy because my host family's Catalan. I'm hanging out with the Catalan family every Sunday. Every Sunday we would have lunch together with all the other brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and grandparents. And there's like 50 people there, and I don't speak Catalan. I barely spoke Spanish at the time, and it was just crazy, and I was like trying to be a good teacher because I didn't want to mess it up. But I remember like the sheer overwhelm I felt. This is so crazy. And every turn I took in Barcelona, every time I boarded the train or the suburban railway or things like that, it just felt like an adventure to me. Anytime I would buy a ticket for public transportation, I was just like blown away by it. I ended up leaving the host family, and then found a couple of roommates in the city center of Barcelona. And yeah, that just like shifted things into overdrive. It's just amazing, man. I mean, you've been there. So it's like, how it's all these little neighborhoods are just absolutely gorgeous. And I was lucky enough to have a flat in the neighborhood called Gracia. And, it's kind of bohemian, and everyone's kind of drinking in the square, in the squares and chilling, smoking cigarettes on the ground. And everyone's so like cool and hip. And I was just being a city kid in Barcelona, which, yeah, it was just so wild. I mean, it's such a fun city. It's so gorgeous. The people are gorgeous. I mean, there's always something to do. Barcelona, there's the ocean's really cool, but it's also quite urban. But then there's mountains that aren't too far either. So it was kind of perfect because, I would be like, yeah, let's go on a hike, or, let's go to that crazy monument in the middle of nowhere, seemingly, or let's hit up the beach or something. So it's something for everyone. And just me being from the South and kind of having this whole city as my playground was just really crazy. And even looking back at it now, I kind of like laugh at myself because I was such an idiot being only 23, 24 at the time, of like, exploring this big ass city, parties and people, and trying to learn 2 languages and meeting people from all over the world. It was like incredibly overwhelming at that time. And I kind of see that now that I was pretty overwhelmed, but I'm so happy I did it. And, as you know, anyone who goes to Barcelona just absolutely loves it.
Yeah, man. And that's why it's good to go back too, right? Because the first time you go, you have your initial experience with Barcelona. And then I've now gone back multiple times, right? The first time I went was in 2014. And it was just a shorter trip. So I was like, I got to come back and live here for at least a month. So then I came back in 2015, and I was based in Elborn, which is a super dope community. And then I went back again in 2018. I was there, and I was based in Gracia as well, your hood, for about a month. And that was just such a cool and very different community. And it was just, each time you go back, I feel like I have different experiences with Barcelona, which are all amazing, but you just kind of like stack and layer your appreciation for Barcelona every time you go. And you also mentioned to me that you went up into the Pyrenees Mountains, which I have actually not yet done. So how was that?
Yeah, that was probably one of the most epic memories I ever had, just because when I went, I was still with the host family and they had a house in the Pyrenees. And I remember I was sitting there in the Pyrenees, where I'm setting up the table for lunch or something, and we're eating like artichokes or something. I can't even remember, but yeah, I just remember sitting there and I was thinking, holy crap, I had my overdose like a year ago today. I was just thinking, I was in a Jackson, Mississippi hospital a year ago. And now here I am looking over the mountains right now at this little house, like on these hills and stuff like that. I think if you like go to my personal Facebook and you scroll to like 2015, there's like I actually made like a little post about it. And I was just amazed, just absolutely blown away. I was like, wow, so much stuff can happen in a year. And yeah, it's definitely one of the most epic moments I've ever had.
That's awesome, man. Well, I know you've also spent a lot of time in Budapest in Hungary. I think that's the place outside the U.S. that you've spent the most time since you started traveling. And I would love for you to share just a little bit about what Budapest is like and why you love it there so much.
Yeah. I mean, I came after my year in Barcelona, I moved to Budapest to continue my brief teaching career. And I was only going to be there for 1 year, had this whole plan of like, I'm just going to teach 5 countries in 5 years and just be like that kind of guy. Ended up just falling in love with Budapest. And, Budapest is, I don't know, it's one of those places that's really resonated with me. There's something about the vibe there that it's kind of urban, a bit cold, a bit gritty, a bit grimy, but still like aesthetically gorgeous that I don't have the heart to leave. And I've been there since 2016. And I absolutely love it. I mean, it's one of those places in which I think everyone I know who's been there, they love it as well. And anyone who stays long and just ends up staying longer or wanting to stay even longer than that. So yeah, I mean, it's one of those places in which I kind of grew up a whole lot too, from just being like this dumb kid and to not having much aim in my life other than like teaching and hanging out and trying to meet people to, being a business owner and being based there. So, I mean, Budapest it's one of those places to which I call it home, and it's as much home to me as Memphis is. And, I feel just as good there as any place I've ever been. And so it's just a really kick-ass place because, if you want to like have a good time and meet people when you're extroverted and things like that, there's plenty of parties and things like that as well. But if you enjoy kind of kicking back and meeting chiller people or, going to cafes and just doing that whole thing, then there's plenty of that as well. And of course, I have a girlfriend and she's Hungarian and love her to death. And we have a great life over there. But yeah, just so many great memories over the years in Budapest. I still want to keep making some more there.
That's awesome, man. I love that. Well, I would also love to talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial transition because I feel like a lot of people start off exactly where you did, which was say, I want to travel the world. One of the ways that I can go and live in another amazing country is I can teach English there, and that's how I'll finance my lifestyle. And I think there's a lot of people that start off with that, and they get out of the country and they start their journey that way. And then for you, how did you make the transition from being a teacher into what you're doing now?
I would say after my first year teaching in Budapest, I slowly realized I just wasn't liking what I was doing, but I was like, I don't want to teach anymore. If I go to Hong Kong or something, I don't think I'm going to be any happier teaching. So I did the whole thing of like, how do I make money online? How do I travel and make money and all that stuff? The typical Google searches, And so I just found out a whole lot of different things from like Amazon FBA, drop shipping, all this stuff. None of it really resonated with me. And I had no idea what I was going to do. But then I went to some international meeting point in Budapest. Well, the gathering is called International Meeting Point. And it's where people from other countries or Hungarians as well, you can go there and meet people and whatnot. And then I ran into a young German guy, 20-year-old, a guy named Finn Lobson. So Finn, if you're listening to this, shout out, man. I used to ask him, it's like, what do you do? You're like young, you get to travel, you get to do these things. He's like, oh, I'm a freelance copywriter. And I didn't know what it was. I thought he was like a lawyer and things like that. But he was like, no, I do. It's like salesmanship in print. and I was interested in, what he was doing. And so we kept in touch. He sent me some resources. I got into the big, like watching YouTube videos and reading blogs. And, he would just like send me videos of himself like doing work in like a cafe while I was like at the kindergarten where I was teaching and stuff. And he was like, yeah, go for it. And so I remember I got like my really bad like Hungarian salary, like teacher salary, which was only like for half the month because it was December. And so we didn't work for the other half. And I was like, I'm going to take this. I'm going to get like a really shitty laptop and try this. I didn't even have a laptop at the time. And so I did the whole thing of like, I got some like really awful laptop on Facebook Marketplace that was already dying on its last leg. And it's like, he would only charge if I, propped up the charger up against like a coffee mug or something like that, and created my Upwork profile at the time. And that's when it started. I was like, all right, I'm going to do this for sure. This is, and once I got the laptop, I was like, I guess I have to go 100% into it. And so I told my, the school that I wanted to go part-time and focus on freelance copywriting, which was, and that's what I've been doing ever since then.
That's amazing. And you've now built and scaled it into a 6-figure income, and you are doing it totally location independently. You're in Mexico right now, as you mentioned. And I would love to pull out some of your expertise because you have helped a lot of companies increase their revenue significantly just by improving their copywriting and their email marketing strategy. And what I'd love to do, because we have a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs that listen to the podcast, and all of us can use some improvement in those areas. And I would love to sort of pull out some of your top tips for companies to really take this to the next level. So I think a good place to start maybe is just sort of at the macro level. So when you come in and you start working on a project with a company to really take their email marketing to the next level, talk to me about those initial steps. I mean, in terms of target market research, psychographics, understanding who you're writing to, let's start sort of at that level, and then the list segmentation and kind of from there at the macro level, and then we'll go down to the specifics. So, give us some tips there in terms of where should people start and what's the kind of the big picture important things to do first.
Yeah, 100%. So one of the main things I do when I first onboard a client, start working with the business, is understanding, one, what are they doing now in regards to their messaging, into their email strategy, into their copy. And to do all of that, I need to start with researching their market. So understanding who they're selling to, who their ideal customer is. But it's not just asking the typical questions of like, what are their pain points? What are their desires? What are their, the things they want the most? But it's more like actually understanding who they are to like almost a cellular level, to understanding where they hang out offline, who they hang out with, who do they follow on Instagram, what do they read when they're not reading stuff on the internet, what kind of books do they want, who do they want to be? And a lot of that is just so when I write to the customer that I really resonate with them. And I can be as different as possible. I think the deeper you get, the more research you do, then your copy is going to be a hell of a lot better, but then you can actually write copy faster. So kind of going down and like really understanding that target market really, really, really down to the core is so crucial. The research like takes up about like 80% of my time. And then when it comes to actually the email marketing strategies, I like to look at, what they're doing now. Are they segmenting the list? What kind of emails are they writing to their email list? Is it just your typical promo of like 20% off here, 30% off here, 50% off here, like every other week? Or are they actually showcasing a story behind it? Are they showing personality? Do the emails read like it's coming from an actual person and not just a business? So that's what I like to do. And that's one of the biggest shifts that I always make with anyone I work with is let's change the messaging from sounding like some company with some businessy jargon to actually putting a personality to it. And sometimes I even go with actually putting a face to it. So I'll even ask the companies that, can I have a spokesperson to write? So it'll be Matt from company instead of just being from the company in the from name. And then we go down to creating automations, trying to figure out what kind of offers do they have and what kind of automations can we set up so that we're not just sending emails, but we can actually send emails, on automation and make money, overnight on autopilot. As cliche as that sounds, that's something I think also every business should also look into more. It's like, how can we connect the automations that we have so we can be a lot more robust and sophisticated? So That's one of the things I really look forward to when I even just audit a company.
Right. Okay. So you start off with really doing that in-depth research on the target market and the understanding that there may be different sub-markets within the target market that have varying pain points or varying aspirations and might resonate better with different messages. And so then you segment the list so that you are writing directly and specifically to each of those sub-markets, speaking directly to them, to who they are, to what their needs and aspirations are. And then once you're able to do that, as you said, which is the big part of it, now how do you craft the emotionally driven, story-based copy, which I know is a really central part of your strategy?
Yeah. So, as you said, it's all about segmenting the list and to understanding what resonates with them. There's the highly engaged list who will practically buy everything you promote. And then there's the mid-engaged list who, maybe they're just opening the emails and just reading and not buying anything, or perhaps they're clicking on certain products and they seem interested, which we can gather from the data and trying to figure out how we can actually get that first purchase or actually to purchase that particular product. But to create these emotionally driven stories, it's all in the market research. A lot of the times you can look at the testimonials and the reviews and look at what changes did our product or service make, that what was the impact, what kind of result were people trying to get, and what results did they get from our product or service. So it's one of those things in which you can actually look into what you have now, the assets you have now, that you can create stories. And you can even look at your own company story, your own brand story. If you have a personal brand, your own background story, you can even find these little stories that people really resonate with that you can implement in your welcome sequence. For example, that people really just love. I was just consulting with the health coach recently, and she was like, Francis, I have no idea what to do. I'm trying to get my messaging down pat. Like, what do you think I should showcase on my website or in my emails? And I'm like, I asked her, you've been doing this for a few years now. What is something that has happened? What is something you've said to someone or shared to your clients that really impacted them? She was like, oh, well, it's my story. When I told them about my struggle with chronic pain or whatever she was dealing with and trying to help her clients, she said that, it's brought them to tears. And that's something that is absolutely powerful. And I was like, Pam, use that. Like, use that story. Like, go with that. And yeah, after that, you can actually kind of go through your testimonials and pick out like little stories to share, which are really powerful.
That's awesome, man. So then once you have the copy written and you have the onboarding sequence or the welcome sequence or different types of follow-up sequences, for the different segments of your list that are speaking directly to them with emotionally driven stories that are going to resonate with them, then you're able to automate it and set up the automation feature. So when they opt in for your website or your free gift, then that triggers the onboarding sequence or whatever it is, and you've got that automated. Now, what tips do you have, Francis, for increasing deliverability, increasing open rates, and sort of just getting better overall kind of metrics and performance out of your email strategy?
Yeah, for sure. Well, if anyone's listening to this and you don't know what email deliverability is, it's all about how well your emails are being delivered to the primary inbox, to your readers. We have like those filters now where it's your primary inbox, your promotions, and then your spam folder. And, so email deliverability, good email deliverability is making sure those emails get to the primary, because the more the emails get to the primary, then the more opens you get, and the more opens you get, the more clicks you get, the more likely you're going to get some sales. So increasing deliverability is all about engagement and ensuring that your readers are actually engaging and doing stuff to your emails. So the way that these filters, these spam filters, Gmail, Yahoo, or what have you, how they determine a good email is if the sender has a good reputation. So if you continually send emails and no one's opening your emails, and maybe they even open it and just like quickly bounce out, that's just going to hurt you in the long run. And over time, you'll end up, if you have a bad email strategy, you'll end up conditioning your readers to think, okay, this email sucks. Their emails suck, so I'm just not going to open it. If I do keep opening it, I'm just not going to read it or do anything with it. So the best thing you can do to improve your email deliverability is one, is shorten your segment that you're sending your emails to the only the highest engaged subscribers. So those are the people who are depending on how often you email and your products. Then it's the ones who have opened your email within the last 21 days. And I've done this with clients before where I'm like, okay, I'm just going to send it to the highest engaged, and it's only like 15% of their list or like a fifth of their list or something. And they're like, oh, well, it's so low. Like, I'm not reaching anyone. When I always say, well, you're not reaching anyone anyways, and you're also shooting yourself in the foot because you have people who are receiving your emails and they're not opening it. So now the filters are thinking, okay, well, this sender sucks, so I'm going to send them to promo or even spam. So to make sure that doesn't happen is to make sure you send emails that make customers engaged. So that's focusing on your copy and inspiring them to take action on the emails. So it's making them click on the emails or making them forward the emails to another person. Or, my favorite is actually making them reply to the email, because, that's like so powerful. If you're a business and you actually have people replying to your emails, that's showing the filters that, oh shit, like they actually like these emails. Like they're responding, they're engaging. So I'm going to make sure that those emails get sent to primary. That's one of those things that I think every business should be focusing on in regards to their automations or email campaigns is how can I inspire people to reply back, to click on the email, to share. So those are like just in a messy way, some tips to increase your email deliverability and overall open rates.
So, Francis, let me just ask for the people that have established businesses. Maybe they've been running their businesses for many years. They've been building their email list. Maybe they have a pretty sizable list at this point, but they say, you know what, Francis, I just send the same email to my entire list. Honestly, I don't have it segmented. At this point, if somebody has that established business with an existing single email list, what would be the first steps for them to begin meaningfully segmenting that list? How should they approach that process?
Yeah, so I think they should go to their ESP, whether that's ActiveCampaign, whether that's Klaviyo, or MailChimp, or Entreport, and to look at who is actually opening your emails recently, who's resonating with your message right now. Over time, if you keep sending to the same big email segment, that's going to hurt you in the long run. People are going to end up, not opening and whatnot. So what you have to do is gather those people who are engaged with the emails. So those are the ones who are engaged with your brand right now. So if you create a segment of people who have opened your emails, your last 5 emails, your last 7 emails, or in the last 21 days, and you just send to those people, then you're going to automatically start boosting your email reputation. And those filters are going to be thinking, okay, well, he's a really good sender. He's not bothering anyone with his emails because the people he's sending to are opening it and they're engaging with it. That's very crucial. After that, then you can actually look at the bigger picture of going into your welcome sequence and making that more engaging. How can you change your messaging? How can you change your brand story and how people are introduced to your business and brand so that you can condition them to actually open your emails more?
And then beyond the segmentation by engagement, if people wanted to start segmenting by the sort of the niche target market, like we talked about some people might have different types of pain points or different types of aspirations, in the general product category, which is why they're on your list, but you might need to be writing different email copy to different segments of your list. So once you, let's say, identify the highest engaged segment of your list, do you recommend surveying that segment and then based on the survey results, sort of tagging people in different categories and then starting to send differential email copy, or like, what is that process like?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I like to do is just eventually have some type of survey in an automation or an entire automation dedicated just to the survey. That way we can even see what products do they want? What products do they don't want? Even if our messaging doesn't resonate with them, or if some part of the business doesn't resonate with them. So that's another part of market research that you can leverage. And I've leveraged in the past. But then also, just to see if they've already had a certain product, then I already know then, okay, well then I won't promote this product or this service to them. And so it's all about making sure that their journey throughout their relationship with the business is tailored to them. So nothing like sucks worse, at least in my opinion, is when I get an email from a business owner or from a business and it's like, check this service out or check this product out. And like, I already have it. For me, I see that and I'm like, well, you're obviously not paying attention to your email list because you're not paying attention to, my relationship with you. And so using a survey or looking at the tags that you have in your list and seeing what people have bought or what they've shown interest in, that's also a very powerful way to make sure that your email strategy is tailored to your subscribers and you're not just pummeling them with the same offer over and over again, which will eventually just piss them off and they'll unsubscribe and then it's going to hurt you in the long run.
Yeah. So as people are listening to this podcast and business owners with existing email lists are listening to this podcast, when they jump off this and they want to do something immediately to start improving the performance of their email marketing, right? There's obviously a whole comprehensive strategy, that you run for people and that you talk about. But what would you say is the biggest leverage point, right? Like all these different things we're discussing, what would you say when you really see those big revenue boosts from the email marketing? What is sort of the biggest leverage points that companies can change from what they're doing now to what's going to get them significantly better results?
Yeah, right now, if there's a business owner who's like, okay, I'm just going to revamp my email marketing is, really look at who you're sending to and look at if that segment is dynamic and if people who are not interested in your emails, if they're being kicked off of that segment. Because the more you boost your email reputation, your sender reputation, then the better you can leverage other things. So if your reputation's good, then you double the chances, triple the chances of having your welcome sequence read. If you have good deliverability, then you boost the chances of your cart recovery emails being read. Instead of being sent to promo where everyone else's emails are. I mean, think about that when you send an email out and you maybe have like a medium to like low sender reputation, and then you just end up being put into the primary promotions folder where, a lot of the shitty emails are, all the ones that are just graphic based and just bad. So if you're really wanting to do something now, it's boost your email reputation, your sender reputation by sending to your highest engaged. Even if it's like a small group, a fifth of your list, I guarantee you that in the next few weeks, when you start kind of expanding your segment, you're going to get a lot better results. That tip there is like half sending to your highest engaged segment, but then also half like list cleaning, which I think a lot of businesses need to do.
And so just to clarify, Francis, when you take that top, 20% of your list, let's say, right, the top 1/5 of the most engaged people on your list, and you just start sending there, what do you do with the other 80%? Do you eventually integrate them back in? Do you just get rid of those subscribers? Do you put them into a separate sequence that says we're going to take you off our list if you don't engage? Like, what do you do once you pick out that top 20%? What do you do with the other 80?
Yeah. So with the other 80, I even go to the bottom 20%. And it's like, I even see who hasn't even like opened an email in the past, like, for example, 6 months. In that case, they're off the list completely. So I completely clean it. With the other part of that, the 80%, I eventually try to bring them in. So once I believe the deliverability has gotten better, then I will slowly creep it up the level of engagement to, maybe it won't be just the last 21 days. Maybe it'll be the last 45 days now. So now it's an even bigger list. So then, eventually some of those people into that 80%, they're going to open more. So now my highest engaged segment is even bigger. So I like to entertain those people and not really send them like these salesy promotional emails, but more, I would say, just very human to human of like, Do you still want to be on this list? Click here if you want to unsubscribe. Or if I am reviving a dead list, I like to send them an email that says, hi, this is this person from this business, and we're doing something different with the emails from now on. It's our new strategy. You can expect to get 2, 3, 4 emails a week from us from now on, and this is what's new. So it's all about being very transparent with what you're doing and trying to bring them to this highest engaged segment, because that's going to be your moneymaker right there.
That is awesome. All right, Francis, great advice. At this point, are you ready to move in to the lightning round?
Yeah, 100%. I'm ready.
Let's do it.
The lightning round.
All right, what is one book that has significantly influenced you over the years you'd most recommend people check out?
Just Kids by Patti Smith, which is not like a businessy book or anything. It's more of like a memoir of like moving to New York in the 70s. And I always kind of resonate with that. If you like good storytelling and you want to even learn how to write good stories in your emails, I would check out Just Kids by Patti Smith.
Awesome. What is one travel hack that you use that you can share and recommend to people?
Yeah, I would just say wherever you're traveling to, join the Facebook group of travelers and expats that are there. I've literally gotten out of trouble and gotten so much help and made friends just by joining like a group for like 5 days, just saying I'm in town. Can someone help me out or something? And yeah, I would just say just join the group, even for a few days. That's my favorite thing to do.
Awesome. If you could have dinner with any one person that's currently alive today that you've never met, just you and that person, who would you choose?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Probably like someone crazy, man. Probably like Paul McCartney or something. I feel like he would have some crazy stories, or like, I don't know. My favorite comedian is Theo Vaughn, and I feel like me and him would have a good conversation over like crawfish or something. So I'd probably say 2 of those people.
That's awesome, man. All right, Francis, knowing everything that you know now and everything that you've experienced in your life up to this point, if you could go back in time and give one piece of advice to your 18-year-old self, what would you say to 18-year-old Francis?
I would probably just say learn to meditate, to not be so impulsive, to be more introspective. And it's not weird or anything, just to, the feelings that you're feeling now, they're wild, and you should try to tame them or at least accept them. So definitely sit down for 10 minutes, big guy, and try to get yourself squared away.
That's awesome, man. All right. Of all of the places that you have traveled in the world up to this point, what are your top 3 favorite travel destinations you would most recommend people check out?
Oh, yeah. I would definitely recommend Budapest, Hungary, my home away from home. Number 2 would be Rhodes, Greece. I think it was just absolutely stunning, and I loved it there. And I love how it's very chill. And number 3 would probably be just Barcelona, man. It's an animal of a city, and I think everyone should go check it out.
I agree. Those are great picks, man. All right, Francis, what are your top 3 bucket list destinations? These are places that you've never been. They're the highest on your list you would most love to see.
Yeah. Let's see. I'd probably say number 1 is Vietnam, just because I think that would just be insane. I don't know what it's like over there. Number 2 would probably be like Russia or something, just because I just think it's wild. I'd probably even go to like a weirder place, like, I don't know, like in the middle of Russia, probably not even like Moscow or anything, but like, yeah, the middle of Russia. And number 3 probably be, I haven't been to Morocco, and I've never been to Africa. So just to get that off my bucket list, I think just say I've been to Africa, I think would be cool. So Morocco would be number 3.
Those are great picks, man. I have been to Vietnam and Morocco a couple times each, so definitely hit me up when you're ready for those. And I just did an amazing trip through Russia in 2019, which you and I should talk about, because I went for a month and I did 2 weeks between St. Petersburg and Moscow. And then I did 2 weeks going on the Trans-Siberian Railway.
No way.
From Moscow all the way across Siberia to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. And I did it with like a whole crew of nomads. It was absolutely unbelievable. We're stopping at all the towns on the way through Siberia, and it was just totally epic, bro. So when you're ready to plan that Russia trip, hit me up for sure.
Oh, 100%. That sounds insane. I love that.
Totally epic, man. So, all right, Francis, at this point, I want to ask you a little bit about your business offering. Who would be the type of ideal client, the best fit for your customers? Who would be the right person to work with you, and what are the services that you offer?
Yeah. So right now I work with a handful of coaches, consultants, mentors who have online courses, digital products, they're affiliates of other businesses. And what I offer is creating a full spectrum done for you email marketing strategy and service. So basically it'd be completely hands off for you. And I would essentially just do all of the email copy, implementation, strategy, and making sure all the automations are in working order and they're sophisticated and robust as possible. And ensuring that your messaging and overall copy resonates with your ideal audience. And growing that list as much as possible with qualified leads and people who just want to buy your stuff over and over again.
That's awesome, man. So do you do sort of like a free consultation for business owners that want to have that discussion with you and see if it's the right fit? How should people learn more about it and come into your world and all that?
Yeah. So, if you want to come into my world, then you can just go to my website at storiesandcopy.com, join my email list, stay in touch with me that way. And if you are interested, then, in working together, then my whole thing is to get on a call for 30 minutes just to see if we're a right fit, if I have the bandwidth, if you have the bandwidth, if we even like each other. I don't work with everyone, and that's just for the betterment of myself and the person I'm talking to. So join my email list. I have a couple products coming out. I have my new ebook called The Click Rate Code that I just released. So you can get that for free just by joining my email list, actually. So if you're interested, contact me and stay in touch.
Awesome. We are going to link all of that up in the show notes, folks. So just go to one place at themaverickshow.com and go to the show notes for this episode. We're going to have Francis's website there, how you can get onto his list, get his free content. And if you want, you can set up that free consultation with him. Francis, this was awesome, man. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, brother. This was a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right. Good night, everybody.
Be sure to visit the show notes page at themaverickshow.com for direct links to all the books, people, and resources mentioned in this episode. You'll find all that and much more at themaverickshow.com. Learn how Maverick Investor Group can help you buy cash flowing rental properties in the best U.S. real estate markets, regardless of where you live. Schedule a free phone consult today at themaverickshow.com/consult. Now you can buy rental properties with tenants and local property management in place, so you don't have to be a landlord or a rehabber. To get your questions answered and discuss how Maverick Investor Group can help you meet your real estate investing goals, schedule your free phone consult today at themaverickshow.com/consult.
If you like podcasts, you will love audiobooks, and you can get your first one for free at themaverickshow.com/audiobook. Whether you want the latest best-selling novels or books